A very good morning to everyone. In this today's video, we will be discussing about the rest of the portion of this reproductive health chapter, where we will be discussing about some important topics in terms of your exam, competitive exam that you will give for medical entrance as well as for your boards exam, because this portion is very informative and majority of the questions that arises from this chapter are from these portions only. So the first topic that we will discuss in our today's lecture is medical termination of pregnancy. What is this medical termination of pregnancy? Medical termination of pregnancy is the deliberate termination of any unwanted pregnancy by medical or surgical method before the fetus becomes viable. So it is a deliberate attempt to terminate this unwanted pregnancy. If there is any kind of unwanted pregnancy, it is a deliberate attempt to terminate it by obviously some medical or surgical methods before the fetus becomes viable. This point is very important, that before the fetus becomes viable. If the fetus becomes viable somehow, then it can lead to some serious complications in the mother's body. So it is mostly, if it is done, then it is done before the fetus becomes viable. What are the importance of this medical termination of pregnancy? It prevents any unwanted or unplanned pregnancy. It prevents the birth of physically or mentally handicapped children. It helps in protecting the health of the mother. It reduces the maternal mortality rate. It helps in controlling the population growth, and it provides the right to women over their reproductive choices. So when is this medical termination of pregnancy is done? It is done if and only if there is any unwanted or unplanned pregnancy, or if the fetus that is developing is having any kind of physical or mental problems. Then in that case, medical termination of pregnancy is being done, because after the mother conceives a baby, a huge number of tests are being conducted, and those tests can give you the result that the child or the small fetus that is present, that fetus is physically and mentally sound. If the fetus is not physically or mentally sound, in that particular condition, the parents can go for medical termination of pregnancy. It can help to protect the health of the mother. Certain fetus developments are there in which the mother can have life threatening conditions or life risks. So in those conditions also MTP is done, and that is how we can reduce the maternal mortality rate. We can control the population growth, obviously, since it is a termination, since it is the since it is the removal of a newly born baby from the mother's womb. That is how we can control the population as well. And obviously there will be some choices regarding the reproductive choice of the mother. So what are the different risks and complications related to it? The different risks and complications that can lead are, in some cases, the tissue may remain inside the uterus. Even after doing MTP, there can be some presence of some tissues inside the uterus, which can lead to certain risks and complications in the mother's body. It can cause excessive bleeding. It can cause excessive bleeding due to hemorrhage, because obviously you are taking out a tissue from the mother's body, and obviously it can lead to excessive bleeding. And these excessive bleeding are the most important cause that, or most tough things that happens after MTP, and it can lead to a serious life-threatening situation. If the instruments are not sterile, then infections may occur. If it is not being done by a professionally trained medical professional, then they can use non-sterile thing, and infections may occur. Fourth point is rare, but it can affect the future fertility of the female, because it can cause injury to the uterus of cervix, and as a result of which it can cause future infertility. Pregnancy may even continue in some cases. So there are some cases where we have seen that this pregnancy can continue even after doing MTP, because some tissues are left behind. And lastly, a very anxious, stressful and depressive thing can occur inside the mother after this medical termination of pregnancy. What are the legal aspects that we have to follow, or that we should know based on this medical termination of pregnancy? Is, in India, MTP is legal. MTP process is illegal in case of India under the Act of Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. which was amended in the year 2002, where they are saying a pregnancy can be legally terminated up to 20 weeks by a registered medical practitioner under certain conditions. So three things are very important. First of all, this MTP is legal. It is 100% legal if it is done up to before 20 weeks by a registered medical practitioner and under certain conditions. Sometimes this medical termination of pregnancy can be done beyond 20 weeks, and for those three conditions are there. First of all, risk to the life of mother, substantial risk to the fetus from serious abnormalities, and pregnancy resulted from a rape. So if there is some kind of risk to the mother's life, if there is some substantial risk that the fetus is suffering from serious abnormalities, or if the pregnancy has resulted from a rape, then in that case MTP can be performed even after 20 weeks. In this MTP, for this MTP, the consent of the female is very important, and it is illegal to determine the sex of the fetus and perform MTP for sex selection. So sometimes it is being done that the family checks the gender of the fetus, and if they see that the gender of the fetus is female, they go for MTP, which is totally illegal in case of India, because India has stopped female feticide long back. MTP is a safe and legal option when it is used responsibly under medical supervision. So this MTP process, which is the deliberate attempt to terminate the unwanted and pregnancy with the help of medical or surgical methods, it is only viable, it is only useful, it is only safe, and it is only the legal option if it is being done responsibly by a medical professional. Other than that, it can lead to these kind of risks and complications which we have discussed few minutes back. Okay, so these are the points that you need to remember while discussing about MTP. Now let us move to the next topic, that is sexually transmitted infections. So in case of sexually transmitted infections, let us discuss these points. So sexually transmitted infections. So sexually transmitted infections are such kind of infections that are transferred from one person to another due to sexual contact, or maybe through infected blood, or maybe from mother to child. So there are different types of these sexually transmitted infections. Sexually transmitted infections that are transmitted mainly through sexual contact, they commonly include, the first name of STI is gonorrhea. Gonorrhea is caused by the bacterium which is transferred with the means of sexual contact. Second name of STI is syphilis, which is caused by another bacterium. It is transferred by sexual contact. Third is genital herpes, which is caused by the virus that is called herpes simplex virus, which is also transmitted with the mode of sexual contact, unprotected sexual contact. Genital warts, it is caused by papilloma virus, which is transferred by sexual contact. HIV and AIDS, it is caused by HIV or human immunodeficiency virus. It can be transferred by sexual contact, or maybe by infected blood, or from mother to child. And the sixth type of, or the sixth name of sexually transmitted infection is trichomonasis, which is transferred by a causative agent, that is a protozoa, which is transferred by the mode of sexual contact. So what are the symptoms of this sexually transmitted infection? It can cause pain or burning during urination. A usual discharge from penis and vagina can cause unusual discharge. Maybe it can cause some sores or blisters or warts in the genital area. It can cause itching, redness or swelling of the genital region. Lower abdominal pain and fever in some cases are the symptoms of this sexually transmitted infection. Many sexually transmitted infections are there which may not show symptoms in early stages, but they start showing symptoms once it becomes worse, and after that there is no turning back. What are the different preventions that a person can follow to prevent this sexual transmission of infection? Practice safe sex, that means use of barrier method every time. Maintaining mutual faithfulness and avoid multiple sexual partners. This is one of the major concerns in our current scenarios of the life, that a person can have multiple sexual partners, and that can lead to sexually transmitted infections very fast. Do not share needles or syringes with anyone. Early detection and complete treatment is a very useful way to prevent this sexually transmitted infection, to detect it early and treat it completely. Health education and awareness, whatever we have studied till now, those things are very important in order to prevent this process of sexually transmitted infections. Condoms, which falls under the barrier method, is most effective way to protect the STIs. So we have discussed this thing before also. Now also we are saying that the barrier method is one of the most effective way to protect against any kind of sexually transmitted infection. Now there is a small portion that is given here in this reproductive health portion is about the HIV or AIDS. Though we will be discussing about this HIV and AIDS in much details in a separate chapter, but there are some points that you need to remember from here only. HIV, whose full form is human immunovirus, attacks the immune system of the body, especially which one? The T lymphocytes. Okay. AIDS, whose full form is acute immunodeficiency syndrome, is the advanced stage of HIV infection. So if a person is infected by HIV, then after the incubation period, when the HIV virus is showing the symptoms, then it is called AIDS or acute immunodeficiency syndrome. The deficiency of that particular person who is having HIV will be reduced. That condition is called acute immunodeficiency syndrome. Modes of transmission: unprotected sexual contact, infected blood, sharing of needles, and from mother to child during pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding are the different modes by which this AIDS can be transferred from one person to another. What are the symptoms? The symptoms are fever, weight loss, persistent diarrhea, repeated infection, fatigue, swollen glands are the different symptoms that HIV shows in its primal stage. There is no complete cure. This is a very important point, that there is no complete cure of AIDS, but there are some medicines which are called anti-retroviral therapy, because AIDS is a retrovirus. So there are medicines which follows the anti-retroviral therapy, which can control the virus and improve the quality of life. They cannot cure it, but they can control the virus and they can improve the quality of the person's life. Prevention is better than cure, so be aware, be safe, and be responsible than having AIDS in your life. Okay, so since it is not having any complete cure, so it becomes very important to be safe, to be aware, and to be responsible. What are the key points of this particular portion? STI spreads through unprotected sexual contact, which we have discussed. Early detection and proper treatment can prevent this serious complication. HIV weakens the immune system and can lead to acute immunodeficiency syndrome, and use of condoms and creating awareness is the best way to prevent this whole sexually transmitted infection. Okay, so in the next paragraph we will be discussing, or in the next slide we will be discussing about another important point, that is called infertility. Nowadays, when we are talking at this particular point of time, this infertility is a very serious concern. There are many couples around us whom we see that they are unable to conceive a new born baby even after they are having a successful marriage of 1 year or maybe more. So that condition is called infertility. Infertility is the inability of the couple to conceive even after unprotected sexual intercourse for 1 year or more. So if they are facing such kind of problems, that they are unable to conceive a baby even after having unprotected sexual intercourse for 1 year or more, then that condition is called infertility. What are the different causes? Ovulation disorders in case of the female is one of the causes of this infertility. Blockage or damage of the oviduct is another cause. Hormonal imbalance in case of females, in case of males, both. Hormonal imbalance can lead to infertility. Problems in the uterus can lead to infertility. Low sperm count, poor motility, abnormal morphology in case of male gametes can lead to infertility. Obstruction in the vas deferens can lead to infertility. Infection in the reproductive organ, like the sexually transmitted infections that we have seen right now, those infections can lead to infertility. And lifestyle factor like having stress, smoking, alcohol drinking, obesity, and poor nutrition can also lead to infertility. So there are different aspects. It is not that only the females are the reason behind the infertility. No, it is not. The females can be a reason, but other than that, males are also equally responsible if a couple is infertile. Also, the sexually transmitted infections can be a reason behind the infertility, or maybe the lifestyle factors like having stress, smoking habits, alcohol drinking, obesity, and poor nutrition can also lead to infertility. How it is diagnosed? Detailed medical history and physical examination is done by the doctor in order to identify infertility. Semen analysis is done to check the sperm count, motility, and shape of the sperm to detect that if there is any kind of infertility in case of the males. Ovulation test is done to check the ovulation is occurring or not. Hormone tests are done in case of both males and females, that is checking FSH, LH, estrogen, progesterone, prolactin, thyroid, etc. are done in order to check this infertility. Imaging technique like ultrasound, HSG is used to check the blockage of any kind of fallopian tube or maybe vas deferens. Laparoscopy is done to detect the problems in the uterus, ovaries, or fallopian tube. So these are the different diagnostic ways how a doctor checks that if there is any kind of problem in any one of these conditions which is leading to infertility. What are the different treatment options? What are the different treatment options that we have to treat this infertility? Lifestyle change. First thing that a doctor suggests is to have a balanced diet, exercise regularly, stress management, avoid smoking and alcohol are the most important suggestions that are given by the doctors in order to treat this infertility. Medicines are given to correct the hormonal imbalance and induce ovulation. So if a doctor sees that there is some problems in the ovulation or there is some hormonal imbalance in case of the father or mother, in that case medicines are given. Sometimes surgeries are done to remove the blockages, fibroids or cysts in case of the females. There are other than this, even after following a good lifestyle, even after giving medicines, even after doing surgery, the couple is unable to produce a new baby, then in that case we have the last option, that is assisted reproductive technologies or ART. There are different ARTs which we will discuss in a separate slide with much more details, but some of them are given here. One is IUI, which is called intrauterine insemination, where a processed sperm is placed in the uterus. IVF, in vitro fertilization, where the fertilization occurs outside the body and the embryo is then transferred to the uterus. ZIFT, that is zygote intrafallopian transfer, where the zygote is transferred to the fallopian tube. ICSI, that is intracytoplasmic sperm injection, where a single sperm is injected directly into the egg. So these are the different processes which we can follow to remove this infertility from a couple. Now there are some conditions where even after changing the lifestyle, even after giving medicine, even after doing surgery, and even after performing ART, the couple is unable to give, or the couple is unable to conceive a normal healthy baby. In that case, adoption is the last thing, which is obviously a noble cause. There are many child which are staying in some homes, they don't have their parents, or maybe their parents have left them. So in that case you can adopt them, which is very noble thing to do for, and it is very very apt thing to perform if a couple goes childless for a long period of time. Infertility can affect both males and females. This thing is very important. There was a taboo in our primitive India that only females are responsible for the infertility. They used to blame the females that, oh, you are the reason behind the infertility. But later on it was seen that not only the females, the males can be also responsible for this infertility. Early diagnosis and proper treatment can increase the chances of conception. With modern techniques, many infertile couples can become parents. So it is very important to detect the main cause. It is very important to detect the main cause of this infertility with the help of different diagnoses, and then after that there are different treatment options that can be done. And obviously if the treatment doesn't respond, in that case the couple can go for adoption, which is a very noble cause, and that should be done by a couple who is unable to conceive a normal healthy fetus. So in the next slide, as I have told you that we will be discussing about this assisted reproductive techniques in much more details. So here we are going to discuss each one of them in details. So ART refers to the techniques and procedures that helps an infertile couple to have a baby. These techniques involve handling the gametes outside the body. So in these conditions, in these techniques, normally what is done in these techniques, the fetus is being developed, or maybe the gametes are handled by the medical professionals outside the body, and they perform certain thing, and then they transfer the whole procedure to the mother's body, and then it leads to pregnancy. So there are different techniques. Let us discuss about the first technique, IVF-ET, which is called in vitro fertilization embryo transfer. So it is from the name only, in vitro fertilization. So the fertilization will occur in vitro, not in vivo. What is the meaning of the term in vitro? In vitro means it is occurring outside the body, and what is being transferred? Embryo is transferred. So what is the description? Fertilization of the egg by the sperm outside the body in a laboratory, and then it is transferred into the uterus in the form of an embryo. How it is done? Ovaries are stimulated and multiple eggs are produced. Eggs are collected. Fertilization with processed sperms are done in the lab. An embryo is formed, and then this embryo is transferred into the uterus. There is a conceptual diagram that is being given here also, so as to make you understand that first of all the eggs are taken out by stimulation, then sperms are added to it, then embryo is formed, and once the embryo is formed, then it is transferred into the uterus. So this process is called IVF-ET, or in vitro fertilization embryo transfer. The next process number 2 is ZIFT, zygote intrafallopian transfer. So here what we are doing, we are transferring zygote. Here we are not transferring embryo. Here what we are transferring is a zygote, and zygote formation occurs where? It occurs inside the fallopian tube. That is why this transfer is done directly to the fallopian tube, and that is why the name is ZIFT, or zygote intrafallopian transfer. Here in this case, fertilization occurs outside the body, and the zygote is transferred into the fallopian tube. How it is done? Eggs are collected from the ovaries. Fertilization with sperms, processed sperms, are done in the lab, and zygote is formed. In the previous condition, after the formation of zygote, it was allowed to grow till embryo, but in this condition, zygote is transferred directly to the fallopian tube. So we take the egg stimulated from the ovary, we are taking out the egg, then we are adding sperm to it, then zygote is formed, and once the zygote is formed, it is transferred to the fallopian tubes. The next process is GIFT, or gamete intrafallopian transfer. In first condition, we have seen the transfer of embryo. In first condition, we have seen the transfer of embryo. In second condition, we have seen the transfer of zygote. In the third condition, we will see the transfer of gamete. Here both the gametes are placed in the fallopian tube, and fertilization occurs inside the body. In the previous two conditions, we have seen that the fertilization occurs in the laboratory, but in the third condition, gamete is transferred and the fertilization occurs inside the fallopian tube of the mother. Eggs are collected, sperms are collected and processed. Both are placed in the fallopian tube, and fertilization occurs, and rest of the process of pregnancy are followed. So eggs are collected, sperms are collected, and then they are transferred inside the fallopian tube, and then it is allowed to form the zygote, the embryo, inside the mother's body itself. The next process is ICSI, or intracytoplasmic sperm injection. Intracytoplasmic, that means we are putting the sperm or injecting the sperm directly inside the cytoplasm. So a single sperm is injected directly into the cytoplasm of the egg, followed by embryo transfer. So first of all, the sperm is injected directly into the cytoplasm, zygote is formed, then embryo is formed, then the embryo is transferred. So what are the steps to follow? A single healthy sperm is selected, it is injected directly into the egg, then the fertilized egg, and then after that embryo is transferred into the uterus. So the sperm is injected inside the egg, a selective egg is taken, a sperm is taken which is selected, and then it is injected. After the injection, zygote is formed, the zygote develops into an embryo, and then the embryo is transferred inside the mother's uterus. The last process in which ART is used, or assisted reproductive technology is used, is AI or IUI, that is artificial insemination, or you can say it as intrauterine insemination. So what is being done here? Processed semen is introduced into the female reproductive tract to facilitate fertilization. This is done when the male is incompetent, but the female can have the sperm and can fertilize inside the body. So in this case, what is being done? Semen is collected from the father and then it is processed. Certain nutrients, certain important medicines are being added to it to make sure that the semen contains the viable, the correctly measured, correctly moving, correctly shaped sperms are there. Then they are injected or introduced into the female reproductive tract to facilitate the process of fertilization inside the mother's body. So what is the step? Semen is collected and processed. In artificial insemination, semen is deposited directly into the vagina or cervix, and in IUI, that is intrauterine insemination, it is placed directly inside the uterus. Then the sperm travels and fertilizes the egg inside the body. So in this whole slide, we have discussed the different types of assisted reproductive techniques which we can perform in order to make sure to give an infertile couple a small baby and they can get the happiness in their life. The different techniques are IVF, once again, in vitro fertilization, embryo transfer. Here embryo is transferred after fusing them in the laboratory. Second step, ZIFT, zygote intrafallopian transfer, fertilization occurring outside the body in the lab, and then the zygote is transferred. GIFT, gametes are collected and then gametes are transferred directly into the fallopian tube. ICSI, intracytoplasmic sperm injection, where the sperm is directly injected inside the ovum. And the last one is artificial insemination or intrauterine insemination, where the semen is directly injected inside the uterus or it is injected in the vagina, and then the rest of the procedure of fertilization, zygote formation, embryo development, implantation are followed inside the mother's body only. Okay, so these are the different techniques that we can follow to give an infertile couple a small baby in their house. So in this particular portion, we have discussed about 4 very important things. First is medical termination of pregnancy, second is sexually transmitted infection, third is infertility, and fourth one is assisted reproductive technologies. This brings us to the end of this chapter, a very informative, a very important chapter that everyone should know. I hope you understood what we have discussed in this whole chapter. If you come across any problems, any doubts, you can use the comment section to ask me. I will give those answers in my convenient time, and by the time I record my next lecture, please do learn all these things, because these are very important in perspective of your competitive exam as well as your normal board exams and school exams. And I hope you understood whatever I have taught you. And until the next time, like, share and subscribe, and wait for more videos from this channel. Thank you everyone.